Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. If you're listening to this intro, it was recorded after the episode, just because I kind of jumped right into it. Matt joined about halfway through because it's ungodly hour where he's at, and he was awesome enough to wake up at that ungodly hour. So, Matt, thank you for that.
No worries. I'm actually going to go right back to bed after this.
I don't blame you. I appreciate you taking the time. So, yeah, man, we had Mike Schleibaum from Darkest Hour on this week talking about Deliver Us and the new record. And, man, it's full of really good stuff, and we can't wait for you guys to hear it. You're about to hear it in, I don't know, a few seconds probably.
Enjoy this one.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. It's fucking awesome that you took the time to come on and talk to us about the band and what you guys are doing and what you have done.
Well, cheers, man, from everybody in Darkest Hour over here in Washington, D.C. We are happy to oblige and do any interviews that we are called upon to do as per our duty as rock and rollers. So, welcome. We are here to entertain and answer your questions.
Well, usually when we start this off, I ask about what records got you into playing guitar, but I want to save that one for a second because I would like to hear as brief as possible rundown of the history of the band, because you guys have been around for like over 20 years now, and I think there's a lot to kind of let people know about. So what can you tell us about the history of the band?
Oh boy, you ready? This is why I am in charge of doing the interviews. So the band started, our first official show was September 23rd, 1995. Wow. And we were originally more of a hardcore than metal band, but around the birth of the metal hardcore movement known as metalcore of the mid-90s, we arose via the American hardcore underground that was very much at the time married to straight edge veganism kind of thing that was happening here in the East Coast and kind of all around America. It was really spreading, and we were lucky enough to be a part of the scene and able to just start touring, and did our first major U.S. tour. I mean, as on our first full U.S. tour in 1999, supporting an EP that was released. We didn't really put out a full length LP until 2001. And so then after that, since then, we have released 9 full-length albums on 11 different labels. 5 of them live on Victory Records, who we were signed to for a decade. Yeah. But recently we have released albums on E1, Century Media, Sumerian, and now with our latest album, Southern Lord Records, who actually put out our first album on vinyl in the 90s, or early 2000s, however, whenever it actually happened. And now here we are. We have a new album called Godless Prophets and the Migrant Flora. It is out now via Southern Lord Records, but it was crowdfunded by eager and loyal fans who are very happy with what they got, apparently. And that's where we're at 21 years later. Yeah, we've toured with a lot of major heavy metal acts. We were lucky enough to do the 2004 Ozfest with Black Sabbath, Slayer, Judas Priest, Slipknot, Black Label Society, Demi Borgir. It was a Hatebreed, Lamb of God, and then plus all these other contemporary metalcore bands that were around at the same time, like Unearth, Every Time I Die.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great tour, but there's been so many tours. The band's been touring on every album, playing live on every continent except for Antarctica.
One day you guys will get there, I'm sure.
I don't know. Maybe it's every continent. I don't know. There might be another one we missed in there. But we have been, kind of all over the place. So spreading the thrash metal, heavy metal, hardcore hybrid ideology. And that is hopefully short enough.
Yeah, no,
21
that's
years.
perfect, man. You definitely touched on a bunch of stuff I want to talk about, so it's perfect. So we'll go into those one by one, kind of as you brought them up. So with all the history of your band, the next thing that, like I said, I want to get to is what are maybe about 3 or 4 records or bands that got you into heavy metal and playing guitar that influenced you?
Well, early on, I got into playing guitar around the early 90s. So the influences that were available to me early on were not later, the same as later. But early on, I got into playing guitar via MTV, which for the kids was this thing kind of like YouTube that you couldn't pick the songs on. It just played whatever it wanted. And I fell in love with AC/DC, Van Halen, kind of classic rock. That was my first loves. But then I very easily stumbled into like what was happening with this vegan straight edge hardcore thing. All my friends were into it. And so then I got into a lot of local bands and then discovered, I would say, my first influential artist would have been Pantera. Nice. Because around the time that I was really getting into guitar, I loved Van Halen, but Van Halen had just gotten rid of David Lee Roth, and they were sort of switching over like their sound. And it was getting lighter, and I liked a lot of the glam rock, like Guns N' Roses and other stuff that was sort of there. But man, Pantera was like Dimebag's playing was just a whole different kind of thing. So I would say Pantera was definitely an easy early one. And also, as far as the band Darkest Hour, as soon as I heard the band At the Gates, I was like, dude, I love thrash metal. This is amazing. This is because I liked thrash in the past. I liked Exodus. I liked Anthrax. Of course, I like Metallica. But this seemed like, At the Gates seemed like new thrash. Like, it was just pumped up and energized and just way more in your face in every way. So that was definitely my second love. And I think really it's funny because Darkest Hour's sound didn't start to mirror Pantera's at all. I liked Pantera a lot, but we were still very much in love with like East Coast metal hardcore bands like Damnation and Bloodlet, and we liked Integrity. And so we hadn't really injected the kind of death metal sound into our sound until we heard At the Gates. And then it was like a floodgates to all those European bands. And it might seem weird to listeners based on the history of things, but you have to understand the way that you found out about music before the internet wasn't always chronological, and it was based by what was around you. So we had a couple record stores near us that could get albums, but like they didn't get In Flames albums before they got At the Gates albums, even though some had come out, Yeah. And they didn't get Dark Tranquillity till later, even though they were early, And so for what it's worth, At the Gates had a huge impact on us. And I would say, as far as guitar playing, that once you kind of add the classic influences of like the big four plus Pantera, and then you add, say, like At the Gates in there, it's kind of riffy, Yeah. Then I think that the kind of like the only really like missing element that's in there that's kind of like, I don't know. It's weird because those are kind of like right down the middle. And I mean, it's kind of glossing over Metallica, who's super influential. And it's also, I mean, basically there's a lot of things we do that are straight out of Metallica's playbook or Megadeth, or, I mean, I guess the big four in a big way were big influences. So
yeah.
As far as, I mean, did you ask specific albums though?
Yeah, we can get into that
Well,
too.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the specific albums are definitely Vulgar Display of Power. At the Gates is Slaughter of the Soul, and I don't know. I guess the other. It's funny because Van Halen shouldn't really get in there. I mean, it's like we love playing guitar, but that's not really that close to the sound.
Hey,
but
we talked about Van Halen on the
but
podcast.
I loved also Zakk Wylde. I loved Ozzy, Black Sabbath,
Yeah.
all that stuff too. So I really was just like a classic rock, heavy metal fan who was awakened late in the game. But it was cool because I was also able to discover like Fugazi. There are local heroes here. We don't have any glam rock heroes and we don't have any heavy metal heroes, but there's a rich community of indie rock and kind of other styles of rock that aren't so heavy from where I'm from that I've also been lucky enough to discover. So you kind of mash all that together and you get the sound that is Darkest Hour, I guess.
That's a pretty good mishmash of stuff. And, we have like a little running thing here on the podcast with guests. And since you did mention Metallica being like a bit of an influence there, which album of theirs would you say is maybe your favorite or one that's a little more influential to you in their discography?
Man, my favorite is Master of Puppets, but my most influential is probably Kill 'Em All because I definitely got Kill 'Em All first.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I had to hide the album and hide the lyrics and stuff from my parents.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was heavy shit, dude. Like I had to turn down Jump in the Fire because my dad got pissed off about it. It was a little too extreme. And I don't know. I really love that album. So if I got to pick, I'm going to say Kill 'Em All, dude.
Okay. That's our first one for Kill 'Em All. We've had tons for Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets, and one for And Justice for All. So
Puppets is sick, and Justice is, dude, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm an old man, so I've had a long time to digest each album, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, it's fun, like us hearing like all the different albums that everybody kind of picks. So that's why we've been keeping tally. We love like all the difference, but it's always within those first few albums.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many people pick Saint Anger?
Nobody. Nobody at all. So with all those albums, I mean, you can definitely hear, bits of those influences with each record you guys have put out and, not like overtly ripping anything off. And that's really cool because when we talk about the history of things, we like seeing where the influences have come from and how it's like turned into completely different, sounds and genres altogether. And I think you guys have done like a excellent job over like all of your discography, kind of showing each of those things intermittently or even all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think we were just really bad, and that helped because if we had been better, we would have copied our influences better, but we just sort of soaked them in. We didn't know all the information we know now, like being able to download the tabs to any song you want or go on YouTube and watch someone rip it and then learn it. All that stuff changes how you know music. And so I think in a lot of ways we were just translating it, and then we grew to something that, like, At the Gates definitely sonically didn't go in the direction we did.
Yeah.
Deliver Us doesn't sound that as much like At the Gates as maybe, say, Sadist Nation, and The Human Romance barely sounds like At the Gates, and the self-titled, they never would have done any of that. It's just, we were able to be a different band in our own band.
Yeah. Every album has been completely different from the last, which is nice. A lot of bands will either, try to stay par for the course, or they'll do something so extremely different that it just kind of gets rid of fans. And it's. I mean, you have a heavy metal. You have a heavy metal podcast. You think that they're all different, but a lot of people think they're all the same. Or you think they're all the same, but a lot of people think they're all super different. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just insane how picky metalheads can be. Because to me, I mean, they're all pretty much related to each other. Mm-hmm. The main thing about a Darkest Hour album is
we soak up the attention of a producer, and you can hear the producer's sound kind of soaked through each album. And I think that what's interesting is when the songs are played live by the band and we play out songs from the entire catalog, all of a sudden they just all sound like they fit together. It's crazy. Like a song that's 20 years old can fit with a brand new song because they're pretty much, I mean, you can hear what's different. There's a lot more technical stuff going on in the newer songs, but still stylistically it's all the same band, you know? And I think in a lot of ways we're proud of that because we have taken risks, but we have stayed right in the box of like knowing what the identity of the band is.
Yeah, and you and John are like the only like kind of remaining members, but even then you really haven't had a lot of member changes like a bunch of bands have, and that's probably good for the sound as well to kind of keep that consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unique to have bands that are around these days that have been around for 21 years that haven't had member changes, but we haven't had that many. I think we've had a total of like 10 or 11 member changes.
Yeah.
And we still have, you know, me and John are in the band. And like I said, the sound it's interesting. Like the sound of the band is almost its own organism. Like Darkest Hour almost is what it is, regardless of the fact that we create it. Mm-hmm. So you sort of have to stay within the confines of what the identity of the band is. So in a lot of ways, regardless of the fact that band members change, we've always sort of stayed true to the identity of the band, even while taking risks. And I think that shows, man. That's the band.
Now, how much of like what you guys want to write versus like maybe, how do I say this? Not what fans want to hear, but like, you know, catering somewhat to fans. Like how much of that do you take into account when you're writing something? Or is it all just like whatever we're
None. I mean, we want people to like it, but none. I mean, we don't want to write a song that we don't like.
Yeah.
There might be guys in the band that would give you a different answer, mm-hmm. because I'm lucky enough to usually be driving the ship, so I will run over people. But the other guys might tell you that there are songs that they don't love, they wish maybe weren't on there, or maybe the producer changed or the label changed. But in general, especially on this new album, we just sort of wrote straight from the heart. Like, what if we were died in a plane crash tomorrow? How do we want to be remembered? Mm-hmm. You know, it was like with that philosophy, not we want you to like it. It's just like, no, this is how we want to be remembered, as a fucking super out there weirdo thrash melodic death punk hybrid whatever thing that's just in your face. But it still has like every style of guitar, heavy metal guitar playing on it, a singer that can sing in a way that you can't, you know, most people can't duplicate. Like, you can't go to school to learn how to sing like that.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
True. I completely agree.
You go to the school of hardcore shows, you know, and John, he invented it in a weird way too, because you just have to sort of learn it and feel it. And a lot of those things make the band unique, I think.
So now that basically half of your discography is celebrated like a 10-year anniversary, and Deliverus is now like the next one celebrating a 10-year anniversary, how is it weird for you, or is it just kind of like, man, another one down, so on to the next 10 more years?
I mean, I'll tell you, like, I'm gonna turn 40 here, and that is weird to say, and like still be like doing this band and still trying to do music and still trying to also adjust the fact that I am an adult as far as I'm an old person, in a sense that I'm 40. You know, like you can't be what you were, you have to be what you are, and it's just, and you have to keep it in perspective. I feel honored to be able to wake up every day and do what I do and get away with it and make art and then try to justify it on the airwaves. But it's also a struggle. I'm not going to lie. The world is pinned up against us, the artists out here, and we got to try to struggle to keep the dream going, and that takes a lot of energy, especially when you get older. So I think we just gotta try to just keep our perspective together. You might see Darkest Hour shorten up tours a little bit here and there when we creep around 50, but I think that guys like to play.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard even guys say, like, dude, if I'm doing this when I'm fucking 50, 45, when I'm 50, used to be this number that seemed so arbitrarily far away. It was like, fuck it, I'm going to be dead then, you know. But now when you start to get near that number, you're just like, well, I'm still the same person, so I'm just going to keep doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And it's weird, too, seeing those guys that have, like, kind of fallen off or, like, been like, I'm too old for this shit now. Like, I'm going to hang it up. You know, like... I mean,
some people are too old for it. Like, you have to be able to adapt. Like, you know, I use guitar apps, and I'm into how kids are jamming and trading song ideas on YouTube, and pretty well versed in recording electronically, and that didn't even exist when we started playing. Like, you have to be able to adapt and change at the same time, kind of maintain what you think is pure, and then also kind of humble yourself all the time, because there's fucking young, talented people everywhere, and they're gonna just make you feel like you haven't learned anything yet, but you have to just kind of soak it all in.
Yeah, it's a whole different beast now with technology and just how easily accessible things are. I can't imagine how hard it was, you know, not a lot, 10 years ago, but like 20 and 30 years ago. It's a whole different
It was
thing.
Easier, man. This technology's made it harder.
Really? That's a
Absolutely
perspective I haven't heard yet. So
yeah, I mean, because what's happened is now everybody hears music different. Mm-hmm. They're like listening to all this shit. But before, you just had like on a White Zombie album, the dude just plays the drums, the dude just plays the guitar and the bass all to it. Maybe they use a metronome, but nobody's looking at it to make sure it's on a grid or anything. It's not visual. There wasn't anything visual going on. You just had music, and it was great, or whatever. Fucking early AC/DC albums, like, those were recorded on tape, and nobody looked at anything.
Yeah.
You know? And now almost all music is recorded in or on a computer in a way where it's visual as well as audio, and as well as being heard, via audio. And so it's a whole other experience. And I think it makes the music different. It's made the way people hear music different. It's changed the entire art form. So I don't think people should pity anyone who existed before all this shit, because I was there a little bit on the tail end and shit was fine, And now everything's fine too. There's great art now. You just have to sift through a lot more white noise.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely a lot more, I don't want to say flooded, but you have to pick and choose these days, especially with how much stuff there is available.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about Deliver Us then. And speaking of recording, I definitely love hearing about how albums were recorded. So take us through kind of writing and recording that album if you can.
Well, that's the second album we did with Devin Townsend, and he was taking a lot on, kind of like signing on to do the second one, because we just did Undoing Ruin, and the response to that was pretty good. So it wasn't as legendary as people think now. The reaction wasn't like a tidal wave then. It just sort of slowly happened, Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting blown up over here. I'm trying to figure. And there was a lot of pressure to follow it up, but it was mainly that we sort of knew that this was the last album that Victory Records was really going to push, because after this, we only had one more album, and we kind of knew that they had to get their investment back from Undoing Ruin. So, this was it. And they did. They went at it hard. They paid Devin a lot. We spent 6 weeks in Vancouver working on the songs and then recording them with Devin. We wrote them all. We were on a crazy deadline. We basically, I remember talking to Chris, the other guitar player at the time, and we decided, look, we have to write a song a weekend for 9 weekends, and then we have 2 weekends to practice, and then we have to fly to Vancouver. Because at the time, we were all working other jobs, and everybody was just practicing on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So every weekend we would write one song, and then we'd go all week, and we'd try to come up with new songs, and then we'd go back down and jam, and then we'd write another new song. And everybody's riffs would go head-to-head with each other, and whoever had the best riff we would work on, right? So at the end of about 7 or 8, John starts scribbling words down and starts getting close, but we really didn't have all the lyrics. We didn't really have any of the lyrics, you know. We really didn't know what was going on with the vocals, but we knew we had a deadline. So when we got to Vancouver, we started doing the pre-production with Devin, and he really, he had never done this before, but he really got in there, and he sat down, and he made us do things over again and practiced, and he listened to everybody's tones, and he just got in there for 2 or 3 days and really sort of got on everyone's playing. And then after that, we were really stoked because we recorded the drums in Bryan Adams' studio, where nice. AC/DC had recorded and Nine Inch Nails, and it was this huge badass spot in downtown Vancouver. And we set up in this epic room with this crazy hardwood floors and these big, rugs, and everybody had their little station where they controlled their headphones, and we all played live with, me and Chris, basically, the 2 guitar players, and Ryan played live all the songs. And we did a lot of versions of those songs. I think one of the songs we recorded 17 times.
Wow.
On drums, just to try to get the right take with the right fills. And then Devin went back with his little editing wizards and put together the songs the way he wanted it to. And we went to this other small recording room that was definitely not as fancy as Bryan Adams' studio, and then we grinded out and recorded guitars and bass and everything there for 4 weeks. And I even think that the bass was recorded, pretty sure that wasn't Undoing Ruin. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the bass was recorded in a 28-hour stretch, because Devin had only had the room. He wanted to do the bass in this huge room, and he only had it for so many hours, and he had to go for it because he was working on a fixed budget and trying to do everything so epic. And then once we had the bass done, he recorded the vocals. I think. Well, no. He recorded the vocals at the spot we did guitars, but I remember there was some heavy reaction in the band when we heard Paradox with Flies for the first time. It was clean singing and very poppy, and I don't know what we were expecting, but it was just blew us away kind of. And also with Demons, that song kind of really came together, and we were like, whoa, some of these songs we didn't think were the hits are hits. And so after that, some of the guys went home, and the rest of us stayed, and we mixed the album at another really great studio. And the entire time we were staying with Byron, who's the bass player from Strapping Young Lad, living in his basement. With also Jed from Strapping Young Lad was also living down there too. And it was getting really close for comfort after about 5 weeks. And so the mixing of the album was really intense too. We didn't have a lot of time. We were using this crazy expensive big board, and we had tons of tracks, 100 something tracks on a bunch of these songs, guitar tracks that were mic'd 4 times, and it was a pretty epic kind of undertaking. And I think in the end, the album shines through for some of that and also suffers from some of that, because maybe we didn't need so many layers of things in the end when I saw it all put together. But we were also kind of creating it at the same time, so it was hard to know. It wasn't exactly planned. And then we got the artwork. We had no idea. That hit us from left field, but John and Baisley had been talking, and I remember too, like even one or two of the band members didn't like the artwork at first.
Oh wow!
And we were like, "What? This shit is awesome!"
Yeah,
but we hadn't
cover.
seen it with the color. We hadn't seen it with the color. It was just a sketch. And, you know, I think people were reacting to wherever they were at that time. And so it was what it was. But, man, once we saw the final watercolored full version and we put that layout together with all the pictures and everything, we were like, man, we really threw the book at it. And Devin bled his heart into it as much as any band member because that was his second album with us. And I think that kind of really shows in the songs and in the whole album. And so in closing, it was a tough album to make, but it was our last really long stay in Vancouver, and it was special and a lot of fun in that way.
What I was going to ask or say is, like, since this was your second record recorded with Townsend, at this point he kind of had a good rapport with you guys and knew how you worked and sounded, so I'm sure that had to have helped make that record sound as good as it did as well, right?
Yeah, the chemistry was there, but Devin was in a totally different mindset and headspace, so he did that one himself without the same engineer, and they were both completely different experiences, I think, but one was done under the shadow of the other, which I think made it harder, you know what I mean? Like, Deliver Us having been done after Undoing Ruin made it at least harder to go into mentally, I think, because you had to top what was done.
Mm-hmm. It's weird, too, because I remember growing up, or not really growing up, I was at least 18 to 21 at this point in time, but, you know, when you hear about, like, what bands are doing sales-wise or, you know, how well they're doing, like, in the metal sphere, it's like, oh, yeah, Undoing Ruin did super well, and then Deliver Us is doing way better. And I don't know if this is true or not. This is just what I saw on Wikipedia. But it says you guys sold 6,600. But for that time, is that a good number? Like, I can't really. I don't have a litmus, you know, for that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I think usually that's why they have the Billboard chart thing, because you can kind of see how these albums did next to every other album, and it gives you an idea where everybody's at. So the interesting thing about Darkest Hour is probably, I think, our best first week was possibly Deliver Us or Undoing Ruin. I can't remember. We were having this argument, but like, it doesn't always equal the best-selling album because some of them just keep selling. But then what happens is people around Deliver Us, people really stopped buying albums. So the album sales went down, but like where we were debuting kept going up. And so like the self-titled album, which had a lower first week than the new album, still charted a little bit higher than the newest album because of the time it came out. August, whatever that week, whatever the competition was, you know. Yeah. I think it's funny when this album came out on the iTunes chart for like the entire week, we were in the number one spot of the heavy metal category, but we kept like getting really close to fucking, because Metallica had just put out Hardwired, right? But they had also bundled every album they had with ticket sales. So every album in the top 5 was a Metallica album but ours.
Oh, man.
And they were just crushing it. But I'm sure somebody was over there going, God damn it, who the fuck is this Darkest Hour band that has the number one slot? Otherwise, we'd have number one. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the metal chart all week, you know. But we were the spoiler. And it just kind of shows you that, like, some of those sales things don't matter that much anymore, especially because you have streaming now. Yeah. So you have to look at where it's streaming everywhere. And then you also have like the pirated streaming, which is like on YouTube. Got to go look at that. And I think in the end, you kind of see how the music is absorbed really live best, because you see what songs people react to and seem to know and care about and scream out, you know?
Yeah, I remember I toured with the Carnifex guys for a number of years, and anytime like one of their albums would come out, you know, we talk a lot about first week numbers versus like overall numbers. And like we kind of had the same discussion a lot where it's like, yeah, we may have sold this first week, but if you look at how it did overall, it's better, you know, because it's going to sell more over time. And I feel like people harp a little bit too much on those first week numbers, but they do matter for bands nowadays, which is still weird.
Well, I mean, they just look so good on your press release.
Mm-hmm.
Debuted at.
Yeah, they often will confuse it with like the movie industry when like what is it like? I think film needs to essentially make like what is it like 70 to 80% of its money or something like that in the first week in order to like properly break even. Yeah, it's apples and oranges essentially.
Yeah, I mean, an album isn't necessarily true like that, and also, so like on Undoing Ruin, the song "District Divided" got picked up and used in this Big Short movie, and all of a sudden, people are buying that song and downloading it and whatever. Like years later,
wow,
you know, like so. Yeah. Sometimes you just have no idea what's going to happen with these songs. Like, we had no idea that Demons was going to be put in Guitar Hero, the video game.
I was about to ask about that. Yeah.
If we had been able to choose the song, we would have absolutely chose Doomsayer, Sanctuary, any of the songs that we were a lot more comfortable with playing live, even Deliver Us. But that's the one they chose. That's the one that ended up being the hit, you know, because it got on this video game. And so you don't always have control. You can stack the songs however you want and try to make everybody pay attention to the first song, but nowadays people don't care. They have access to every song right away in whatever order they want to put it on their phone or their tablet or their, you know, so it really is kind of a different thing. The crowd can really demand the songs we pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of important too. Like if somebody likes one song over another, I mean, you guys don't want to kind of I think it's going to sound worse than I mean it, but essentially like cheat the fan out of the song that they want to hear. You know what I mean?
Well, we do that all the time.
I'm sure it's inevitable.
Fuck yeah. Motherfuckers come to the show and they never, I mean, yeah, there's no win in that battle.
I know.
It's just like you just play the songs you want to play. Sometimes you have to give songs a break, man. You cannot play Demons every show. You can't play Convalescence every show. You know, some songs you got to play every show. Like, we almost always play Sadist Nation. It's just a hit. It's just a banger. Everybody always has a great time. We almost always play 1,000 Words, the first song off Undoing Ruin. People love that. But we do change up the set a lot, and we do circle out a lot of older songs. It's not just about only playing new songs. I mean, we have 9 albums. It's close to 90-something. It might only be over 100 songs. I don't know, and I haven't done the math on that.
Yeah, you guys have like a plethora.
It's a lot to pick through, man.
Yeah.
I was supposed to see you guys on your last run with Tombs and all that, but the show got canceled the day of, and I didn't realize.
Where do you live? Portland? Seattle, yeah, man. Snow, dude.
Yeah.
I have almost died in van wrecks now so many times that I don't think that I'm meant to die in a vehicle wreck, because I should have, you know, I mean, and the older you get, the less you're willing to take crazy chances. And we were stuck. I mean, they closed the 81 over there in Reno. We were stuck there for days, just sitting in that hotel, just wasting money, you know, sitting around doing nothing. It wasn't a good time for us either. So my heart goes out to everybody who missed the show, got all fucked up. But you guys got to know, man, we just can't die. So that's what happened with that.
You're preaching to the choir here, man. Like I said, it spent years with Carnifex, so there's times that we also had to do the same thing, and I think a lot of people don't understand it. So when I found out,
we've really never canceled that many shows. Yeah, we've really not canceled that many shows, just so you know. Maybe 10 ever. Maybe 6.
As speaking of that, as an Australian, about I think it was about 2011. I think you guys were supposed to come out here with Devil Driver, but they kind of pulled out, and you did like this last minute kind of mini tour.
The train wreck tour, yeah. Man, yeah, that was Devil Driver and 6 Feet Under, and they both pulled out. But we had been touring in Asia. We went to Philippines. We did a bunch of shit, and so we had like $10,000+ in tickets, expenses, and shit, and it was going to cost us like another like G a person to change our tickets to go home, and we were just like really in a bad spot, and so we sort of forced the booking agency to put together this DIY thing, which they weren't happy about because you have very strict labor laws in Australia. Yep. And so we were like playing different venues than we were scheduled and all this shit. And so they were really not excited about it and pissed off about it. But we were like, dude, if you don't do this, we're going to go on Facebook and do it. And we did. We booked 2 shows in Perth via Facebook. And we went and we just played fucking random small ass 40, 100 person cap rooms with almost no promotion the day before type thing. And it was awesome. And we haven't been back to Australia since, but we're working on a Japanese tour for later this year. So my fingers are crossed because we'll be in that part of the world. Yeah.
So I remember going to the one in Sydney. And the funny thing now is I actually live across the street from the venue you played in Sydney.
Oh, dang. It was a nice area, though.
Yeah. It's really good, yeah.
So let's talk about the new album now. Let's move ahead 10 years or so. What came about with wanting to crowdfund this album, besides the obvious ups and downs of record label shit? Because I have definitely heard horror stories about Victory and stuff.
Well, we just wanted to have control, and it costs a lot of money for us to do this band because everybody lives all over the country. There's a lot of travel involved. Just in general, it's not. We will always got to have lights. You want to have a fucking backdrop. You got to kind of make the shit feel authentic. And so once you reach a certain level, you can't go back. And so now we're to the point where we just sort of had to become almost a different band. And once we became that band, we realized that we were tired of like making these albums and letting the record labels own the publishing.
Yeah.
So the only way to do that was figure out how can we fund this thing but still control it so that no one can tell us what to do and we can own it like forever. We can own it. It is important. Like I think it's it's sad. Like Prince was always about people owning all of their own material, and then he died before he made a will. So then everybody argued about who owned his shit.
Oh, I know.
And I think it's just a perfect, tragic, karmic example of just why it's so important that artists need that control of your art, ownership of your art is more important than money.
Yeah.
Period.
You guys made it.
And it took us about 9 albums to get there, but actually what happened this time is the fans helped us make it, and it was kind of their gift that now we own it, and that is kind of the beauty of crowdfunding, and those people are legendary to us because they helped make this album, which is very important to the lineage of Darkest Hour albums because it's sort of like end caps everything with the first album and also draws a little attention from the craziness of the self-titled album. And just, I don't know, we're really stoked to have been able to control everything and be able to have this be our vision this time.
And I have to say, man, this is by far like one of my favorite albums you guys ever put out. Like the way Kurt Ballou made this thing sound, it's a fucking monster.
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to work with Kurt for forever, and every record label have been like, no. I think they just thought that we were going to give him a feeding back, just noise fest for 20 minutes, or something. I don't know what they thought Darkest Hour plus Kurt Ballou would be, but it's glorious. And as soon as Greg from Southern Lord heard we were working with Kurt, that's what piqued his interest to be like, hey, I'm interested in distributing this or pairing up with you guys. And I think it's a testament, A, to how great the album is because Greg is involved because he likes the tunes, and that feels authentic. And then also, B, it's a testament to the fact that Kurt really, he made something that just amplified the band sound. I think people like it because it sounds like the band. And he's so insistent on the band being such a major voice in it, and in a lot of ways that other producers aren't, that he'll be like, I wanted to say produced by Darkest Hour and Kurt Ballou.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, but it's produced by Kurt Ballou, motherfucker. We're Darkest Hour. This is how we are. We're crazy and we want to be involved in everything. But like you helped us produce it. But it's we would call him like Kurt, play it however you want, Ballou, because we'd go, hey, well, what do you think about this way? Or I could play it this way, and be like, well, do whatever you want. And no producer has ever said, it's like a Jedi mind trick. Like, what do you mean? Do whatever I want. And so I think that's just, I don't know, it was fun. And in the end, you just get a really honest, cool, imaginative heavy metal record when the components are right.
Did you guys have everything ready to go for this record, or was it kind of like with Deliver Us where you kind of wrote stuff in the studio?
No, it was a lot more planned. I mean, it was a lot more planned. There were some vocal changes, and I mean, everything, you don't want it to be too planned out. Demo-itis, as they call it, and you don't want it to be like you don't know what you're gonna fucking play. But it was a good amount of organic growing. Okay. A lot of the songs took shape, and I think that's why it came out so good. Like, there was space that we were organized enough that we knew how to play and what to play, because we didn't want to waste time. But at the same time, we didn't want to have everything suffer because we just knew how we wanted it to be. And we didn't want it to just turn out just like all the demos we made, because that would have been pointless. So I think that we just went with our gut and let it evolve naturally.
Which one of you guys, was it you or Lone Star that wrote that main riff in Enter Oblivion? Because that is probably one of the best guitar riffs I've heard in a while. It's just such a fucking banger. It's like Matt's.
What's the riff? What do you consider the main riff?
Kind of like the one that like starts off the chorus part, I guess.
Okay, so like kind of the main. All right, so you're just talking about like the main riffy part. Well, see, this is an interesting thing about the album is that we sometimes write the songs where one guy will come in and will write the whole song. Like the first song on the album was basically exactly how I had written it, except for we changed a few of the things in the chorus, and then Kurt Ballou had a sick idea for the ending, and then Lone Star helped me figure out a good solo. And so you see it changes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, with the idea that like after a while the same ingredients could be the same results, we decided we were going to bring in our buddy Chris, who helped write on Deliver Us. And we were like, hey, we want to write a couple songs with you, but we don't want any old shit. We don't want any old demos, nothing. We want just new ideas. So come over to my studio. Lone Star will come up from Texas, and we'll just hang out, and the three of us will play guitar, and we'll program a bunch of drums, and we'll make some demos, right? And so the funny thing is that when you if you told people like, hey, we want to get Darkest Hour and we want to get the guys from Darkest Hour together to write a song, I don't think it would sound, they would think it would sound like Enter Oblivion, but that is actually the first song that the three of us all wrote together.
Oh, okay.
And it's like cool because it's like me and Chris were sitting there and we were like, I was like, man, we need to make a like doomy, slow, sludgy, kind of heavy, ethereal, atmospheric Darkest Hour song. Mm-hmm. We, I knew that the other guys in the band were going to be like judging these riffs, like, oh, here those guys come, like Mike and Chris are going to write some riffs. But so we just kind of went from like they wouldn't even know where we were coming from, and we wrote this song. I was like, this is great. This is out there. This is totally different than all the other songs we had. It was kind of like more like the ballad, and it also just kind of rocked. And so we sent it around to everybody, and I was like holding my fingers, like crossing my fingers, like, oh man, fuck, they're gonna either hate it or love this shit, you know. And then it was awesome because John, the singer, like he was the first one to be like, I love this. This is awesome. How did you come up with this? Like, did, you know, Lone Star come up with this? Did you come up with this? But, you know, he'll always ask that first. And I said, no, me, Chris, and Lone Star came up with that. And John was like, oh, yeah, this is great. We should try that again, you know? And so then that was the door to be able to do it a few more times. But I think that what you hear in that song is a lot of ideas from every guitar player. And I couldn't say who wrote one exact thing, but I just know that that song is it was birthed, the first one birthed that way. And we always knew it was going to be on the album because it was so different and cool that way. And then Chris got to play the guest solo on that song because we wanted him to play like a guest solo or two on a new song. And so I figured, why not on the one song we all wrote together? So
I think that's my favorite song on the album. I don't know about the best. That's all open to interpretation there. But
goddamn, cool. Dude. See, we were going to put that one out as the single, but then sort of got talked out of it by other people and then didn't announce sort of a sleeper gem. Actually, you know.
Yeah, I agree. That is a bit of a sleeper. How did you guys start the beer thing? I thought that was awesome. Fred was nice enough to get me one when they were up here, and I was like, yes, I wanted this beer so bad. Was that somebody else's idea, or did you guys just kind of be like, hey, let's make a beer?
Well, no. We've been buddies with the DC Brow Brewing Company guys forever. Always joking around with them like, hey, we should make a beer. And eventually our manager, who is also based out of the area, and everybody was sort of just all linked up, and that got the ball rolling for this to become an actual reality. Mm-hmm. We had done songs for the Caps. We've done all these other things around the city. So the eventuality of us doing like a local beer was just sort of happening, and the DC Brow guys were like really energetic and jumped right on it and really spearheaded the thing. And we sort of told them what kind of beer we wanted. We knew we wanted like a light, low alcohol, just like show beer that you can just pound and have a good time. It tastes good. And we love German style Helles, which is, when you tour all over Europe, you get to try all the different local brews. So that was one they said they had been trying to make, and so it was a perfect marriage of ideas. And we went in there. I got to pour the hops right in the cooker. Smelled just like the beer. You know, I got to drink the beer right off the assembly line at the coldest it ever come, right out the cans. You know, all my friends just had cases of beer in their houses. Like, the thing is that you can't really export or move this beer around the country that much because the beer companies have lobbied to make it so hard for people. But when you can get a hold of this brew, man, you have to. We're going to be rebrewing it starting July 14th with a show at the Rock and Roll Hotel in D.C. where we live. And they're going to have the beer on tap there. And then it'll be available in stores all around the area that they distribute the beer at. And it'll be in these cool cans, man. And we're just going to keep making beer and selling it out because I'm telling you, this beer is goddamn good.
It is. I got to try it. I was like, dude, can you get me more? And he's like, nope, sorry, this is all I got. But it's funny, too, because I work in like a specialty beer store, and I keep hoping that like maybe they'll get it out this way because we get all kinds of like weird specialty beers from all over the place. But,
we got to tell them to reorder, but you got to get on that because it's hot items, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about everything that I kind of had on the docket. I don't know. Dude, this was awesome. I am like kind of dumbfounded with all the cool stuff that I've been inundated with in this episode.
Yeah, dude, when you're a band for 21 years, you got stories for days, man. Can't be contained in no hour episode.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's hard, especially in like there's so much more things want to ask. But man, hopefully we can have you on again in the future and just like talk about other shit and other records and whatever heavy metal stuff. I don't know. It's kind of
well, one of you guys is based in Sydney, right?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
So hopefully I can make it there one day soon and we can party. And then where are you based out of?
I'm in Seattle.
Okay, yeah. We got to make it back there too to make up for our fucking show. So look, we will be coming to your area soon. Yeah, I'm just going to say soon because that sounds good, but
yeah.
We will be there. And so there will be a chance for a reuniting and, beers to be drank in person in the meat world, as they say. And until then, appreciate you guys having me on,
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Thank
you.
Yeah, no, honestly, thank you for coming on, mate.
Cool, man. Hell yeah. And when you guys get it all put together, we'll share it everywhere. And tell everybody to check out this new album on Southern Lord. And we're going to keep bringing the riffs to the people.
Cool, man. It should be out around Monday or Tuesday, and I'll send you all the links. Do you know if it's okay if we close out with a song, or is that kind of like a legality thing?
Yeah, do it.
Do it? Okay, cool. I always ask just to make sure because there's weird legal things, but I'll put Enter Oblivion in there because I fucking love that song.
We mentioned it, yes.
Cool. I don't know. I guess maybe if you put it on YouTube, it might get flagged, but if you just let me know, I can take care of it.
Cool, man.
Cool, man. All right. Well, cheers from DC. See you guys soon, when the rock lords permit it.
Yeah, man. I'll keep in touch and hit you up when you guys are in the area.
Cheers, man. Later.
Cheers, mate.